All right, we are live. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video and to another stream. And today's is very special because I am joined by Jason Mack, the writer, director, producer, and star of the upcoming film A Father's Legacy, hitting theaters on June 17th for a one-night Fathom event. We're going to get into talking about the movie, his career, and all that jazz right here. But a big thanks to Jason for being a part of this. How's it going, man?
It's good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you being on, and you're like my first official interview that I've ever done for anybody who's like ever been a filmmaker. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Oh snap! So this is like going to set the precedent for you. You know, it's like
yeah.
This, the format and everything. If it goes haywire, it is what it is.
Yeah, man, just going with it. I've done a bunch of live streams with people, but usually other YouTubers more on a fun level. So we're still gonna have fun here, but definitely want to
fun. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So let's go ahead and start this off with a bit of an icebreaker question. On this channel, we talk about all things movies and TV. So for you, what is your favorite movie, or maybe one of your favorite movies?
Oh man, what a question, and it should be an easy answer, but it kind of depends a little bit. And so I've got two answers. One is OG, for whatever reason, this movie just hit me. And it's a movie called Without Limits. And it was about Steve Prefontaine. It had Billy Crudup playing him. And I don't know if you're familiar with Prefontaine, but he was like this runner. And he went to, I think it was Oregon. And he was so good. He went to the Olympics. He came in, I think, like fourth. And he was pissed that he didn't win. And there's rumors that he even moved back to fourth because he was like, I'd rather not get a medal unless it's a gold medal. Don't quote me on that. But for whatever reason, that film just really stuck with me, and I ended up buying it in a bargain bin somewhere. And then the most recent movie, I would say, which some people really disagree with, but was Bradley Cooper's A Star Is Born.
Gotcha.
And I remember seeing that right after we filmed my film. We'd finished production. I just got back to LA, and I was like, I want to go see a movie. And so I went to go see it, and it just ripped my soul out. It was and I had never seen any of the other Stars Born, so it just ripped my soul out. But I guess those are my two answers.
Gotcha. Yeah, well, I've actually never seen either of those. I never got around to seeing the Bradley Cooper A Star Is Born, but I definitely want to. It's one of those movies that just it was out, and I kind of just missed it while it was in theaters. I'm curious about that first one, though. It sounds pretty interesting. I saw online that you actually started in South Carolina, right? That's where you're initially from, and you ended up starting in Atlanta. For anybody who isn't super familiar with Jason, he's also acted in things like Vampire Diaries and Criminal Minds, Castle. You got a pretty nice filmography there. So what was that transition like from going from an actor to a director? I know you also worked on some short films as well leading up to this film. So what was the difference also as well from going from a short film to a feature length?
I mean, they're just different things, right? Doing a short film and doing a feature the scopes are so different. And I did shorts to train myself as a director, as a writer. I edited a lot of my shorts so that I could just learn that skill and kind of know the language. So the goal is to one day have an editor, but I wanted to be able to talk to them on their level and be knowledgeable and know also what tools I had access to as a filmmaker. And I've colored most of my shorts and made a lot of mistakes there. Music and sound is the one thing I can't really do. I just don't have that bone in my body or in my ear or whatever. But shorts is you spend a day, sometimes only an afternoon or maybe 2 days or maybe 3 days making it. And it's probably anywhere between 2 minutes, 5 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. And the story is very contained. With a feature, there's a lot that can go wrong when you're putting together a 90-minute story. And for us, I remember the first cut of A Father's Legacy was 2 hours and 45 minutes. And the final film is, without credits, is 84 minutes.
Yeah.
So we almost cut it in half. And I think you just got to be really cold-blooded when it comes to story. And just if it doesn't serve it, it's got to go.
Are we going to get a Snyder cut, Jason Mack cut?
This is the cut. This is the cut. And this is one of those, I don't know if I'll ever have this much control in any other project I do. But I mean, I had 100% control. This film is literally, I made every decision on every frame. When it comes to everything, there was no oversight on, well, you need to do this or you need to take out that. Like, I truly believe everything that's in that film is 100%, because that's the best way to tell that story with what we have.
Gotcha. Well, that actually kind of leads me into another question I had, which was, the film stars you and Tobin Bell, and I do have some questions about Tobin Bell, which I'm sure you're getting plenty of those questions. But for yourself and the role of Nick, was that something when you were writing the film that you knew, like, I'm going to play this role, or did you maybe have people who auditioned for the role and then eventually you kind of realized, I think I can relay the story the best way?
Yeah, and that's a really good question. So, and you probably know this, because for one, props on you for having your own YouTube channel. And like, this is obviously something you're passionate about. And, I don't know what your end game is, whether it's to build your own channel up, or it's like, man, I'd love for Cinema Blend to hire me. That's like the dream gig. I don't know. But either way, you're not waiting for permission, right? Yeah. And that was my approach with this movie was, if I want to write this in a way that I know I can do it. Whether we have $10, $10,000, or 10 million. We definitely didn't have 10 million. And so I wrote it on so that we could shoot it at my family's property. So I knew locations weren't going to be a problem. We went back to my hometown in South Carolina, where the community was amazing about just helping out. I mean, vehicles, food. They were so generous. Bedrooms for a lot of our crew and cast and stuff like that. So we didn't have to spend on hotels. And so when I wrote it, I had an inkling that I was going to do it. And the only way I was going to step aside was if someone who I really, really respected as an actor was going to step into the role, and also was going to bring something on the business side of things. Like, look, if a Ben Foster or somebody like that rolled up and was like, I love this, I want to do it. I'm like, yeah, 100%. I'd love to direct you, Ben. But realistically, I knew that probably wasn't going to happen. And I also knew the story intimately. And at the end of the day, like, whereas it's not a biography, Nick is me. I know him very, very well. I created him, and a lot of his fears are fears that come from me. And so there's a little bit of logistics and also a little bit of creativity. But I definitely underestimated how difficult it was going to be wearing all the hats that I did. And even though I did it during short films, and a feature is a whole nother beast.
Yeah, I can only imagine. And speaking of you playing the role, one thing that I felt was really strong across the entire film is something I really enjoyed about it, because I did get to see it. I actually did a review of it on my channel as well. And ultimately, I started off my review by giving it a big thumbs up and recommending everybody get their tickets for the Fathom event. As somebody who does this, of course, I had my criticisms here and there, but ultimately, I thoroughly really did enjoy it. And what I liked was the very chill tone, you know what I mean? Like, you very much were taking the time with these characters. It was quiet at times. It was very much about the dialogue and the nuance of the performance. And both you and Tobin Bell were really able to emote a lot out of these characters without really saying much. And I think that's where a lot of the strength in these characters kind of came in for me was just being able to see you guys really go through a range of emotions without really having to say much, and that bond that's built between the two of you guys. So kudos to the two of you guys for really having that chemistry that was definitely, it felt real on screen. And that's definitely,
and to add on to that, because for one, like, thank you. But that was something that, obviously that's the hope, right? Like, at the end of the day, it's about me and Tobin really and our chemistry. And you don't really know until you get there and you're doing it. And there were a lot of scenes that actually ended up not making the final film, because what we realized was we were totally cool staying at the pond house and hanging out with these two characters. Whereas in the script and some scenes we shot, we're like, well, we need to kind of get away from the pond house for a minute to breathe, to see something else. And we ended up taking a lot of that out because the chemistry turned out to be so good and the relationship very, very natural that we kind of felt like it was an interruption to leave that relationship.
Gotcha. Well, speaking of the pond house and the term pond in general, I know the film was originally called The Old Man in the Pond. What made you change the title of the film? I'll say right now, I think A Father's Legacy is more fitting of the film after having seen it. But what made you change the title?
I love the name The Old Man in the Pond, and I felt like it worked really well with the storytelling that we were doing, and almost was informative of how to watch it. And obviously it's a little bit of play on the old man and the sea. That play is, that's kind of the depth of it. But ultimately that was the distributor. They were like, hey, are you open to changing the name? And really it was a matter of, you know, if we had Chris Hemsworth and Harrison Ford and these big names in our film, then maybe we could have kept the old man in the pond. But the fact of the matter is we don't have a huge marketing budget. So we weren't going to really be able to do a lot of outreach. So a lot for us was we need the name and the poster to speak to what this film is. And like you said, it's like, I think Father's Legacy probably fits it a little bit more. It's like, yeah, because as consumers, like when you're looking at stuff, I mean, you gave what, 3 seconds and you know whether you want to watch it or not. Yeah. And so we kind of had to recalibrate. And that's where, look, I'm not, you know, this is my first feature going out there. So I was really appreciative that the distributor put that much thought into it and worked with me on it.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, I think the title definitely fits the movie, and it was cool. You were talking about marketing. Last week, I went to go see A Quiet Place 2 and Cruella on the same night, and before both of them, I saw the trailer for the Fathom Event.
Yeah,
really
movies,
cool.
Movies, baby, they're coming back.
Yeah, exactly, man. But speaking of which, so the movie is going to be in theaters for one night only, correct, for the Fathom Event on June 17th. For those who are maybe not comfortable to get out to the theaters just yet and all that jazz, what can you tell me as far as the future of the film in terms of maybe being on a streaming service or being available for VOD and all that stuff?
Yeah, so it's definitely going to be available on VOD in late July. And then after that, we'll see what happens with the streaming services. But it'll definitely, like, obviously, if you're comfortable with it, you know, there's nothing like going to a theater with a bunch of people and just having that communal experience. But yeah, if you're not comfortable, wait till July, and you'll be able to get it pretty much wherever you want. And
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's cool, man. Because like right now, especially with theaters, things are starting to open up a little bit more. You know, like I have been in the theaters quite a few times since the pandemic, and it's nice to see the theaters starting to fill up again. At first, it was like, you know, like I was watching movies with like 2 people max. Yeah. So I'm really hoping that this movie does well for you. And I want to take it back just a little bit because I wanted to ask you, first of all, how did this project kind of land in your hands? Was this something that, you know, maybe you were pitched? I know you were, you know, like you said, you kind of were involved with every frame of it. I know also when I read a little bit about your statement that this was kind of inspired after the passing of your father. So what can you tell us a little bit about, you know, kind of the creation of this whole film?
You know, this film is every fiber of it comes from my being, and I wrote every word. And from when it was nothing but just a seed in my head, and where that seed came from was when my father did pass away. And that for me was significant because I had a very good relationship with him. And even though I was in Los Angeles, I knew that I could call him and he would love and support me no matter what. And so when he passed, I found myself really looking at like, why was that father-son relationship so important to me? And not just in my life, but even in like films and TV, when I would see that relationship play out, like it would always get me. And so I really started diving into that and being like, man, what is a father to a son, and what is a son to a father? Like, what is the meaning of this relationship, and why? Why is it so important? And that's where all those themes that I explored ended up as the foundation of the film. And from that, like I wrote it, like I acted as financier as far as like securing our funds and hiring our team. There literally wasn't a decision that has been made that I ultimately haven't made it. And well, I don't know if I ever want to do that again. I think teamwork is cool. Makes the dream work. But yeah, I mean, no one brought this to me, and at any point, if I didn't want to do it, I could have just stopped. But I kept going, and we shot this. Anthony, we shot this in 2018.
Wow.
So we're going up on almost 3 years after we shot it. I had the fact that we're going to be in one theater, no less like 700 for a night, that was never actually my intention. Yeah. I didn't think it was a realistic scenario or possible. It's just kind of like, here we are. And just, I guess, patience and circumstances led us here. So I'm thankful.
Awesome,
that's the hustle, man.
Yeah, dude, that's super awesome. And was it Was it something that you were maybe planning to release earlier? Like, did the pandemic kind of disrupt your release for the film? Or
in a perfect world, I wanted to release it last year around Father's Day.
Gotcha.
And I was actually talking to a different distributor at the time, and we were pretty deep in talks, and it was just, there was something about the deal that just didn't feel right. And I kind of, and so I backed out at the last minute. It happened on a few deals. And because, yeah, literally there was a point last February where with the distributor, we were deep enough. We're like, yeah, we want to come out on Father's Day. And it was obviously going to be VOD. There was going to be no theatrical. But we're like,
Gotcha.
People are at home. They're consuming a bunch of content at home. Let's see what's up. And it fell through, which was hard because you finish this film. That's the hard part for me. We did the creatives. We worked hard. And now we want everyone to see it. And it's just like, it's just sitting here like on a hard drive.
Yeah, I can't even imagine what that's like because like I have an issue sometimes with like I try to schedule my videos out ahead of time on my channel. Like I'll try to like burn out one day of just making videos and uploading them, and then I see them all there, but they're private and nobody can watch them. And then
you just want to get them out there.
Exactly. But yeah, like one other thing I wanted to definitely hop into. I feel like I'd be a terrible Tobin Bell fan if I didn't ask about Tobin Bell. Anybody who's been watching my channel, specifically for the last few months, I just binged through all the movies for the Saw franchise again, leading up into the new one. So, dude, when I saw the poster for this and I saw him on this and I saw the trailer and I was like, this feels so different for him. How did that how did that fall into your lap? Did your casting director say, hey, we got you Tobin Bell? Did you seek Tobin Bell out? And what was that discussion like?
So on the reel, here's how it happened. Originally, I was not going to hire a casting director. I was like, I know we don't have a lot of money. I was in Atlanta for a couple of years. I know a lot of amazing local talent that we can get in to do this film. But obviously the old man role is a huge role. It's what it's really based on. So fortunately, I ended up getting a casting director, Matthew Seafick. And we're like, you know what? If we're going to shoot our shot, let's shoot it. So we went to all the LA agents and managers and we're kind of like, hey, here's the parameters of what we're doing. Here's kind of what it's on. And then they provide a list of clients that might be interested. Tobin's name was on that list. And immediately, and it was a pretty extensive list, but I was like, that's interesting. And I know him from Saw. Like for everyone, it's $1 billion franchise. Everyone knows him from Saw. But I watched some of his other stuff and I was like, one, his voice. It's got this gravitas, man, when he speaks.
Yes.
And then two, his face. This man's lived a life. He's not trying to like look like he's 55 years old. Like he looks like he's lived a life. He looks like he's experienced things. And that was important for this character who's been just punishing himself alone in the woods for years. So they set up a meeting with me and Tobin, and it was like we could see the beach from this cafe. And I was nervous because I was like, look, I know it's not me approving Tobin. It's the other way around. Is he going to approve what we're doing? And we ended up meeting for a couple of hours and just getting to know each other as men, essentially. And for whatever reason, he chose to trust me in telling this story as a first-time director, as someone who is also going to be acting alongside him, which is different, and to come to South Carolina he didn't do it for the money. I know that much. And he's a true craftsman, and I can't say enough about him. It's so funny because I messaged him yesterday. I texted him yesterday. We text every now and then. And I said, hey, man, you got any wisdom for me? You've been through this process of a film coming out many, many times before. This is my first rodeo. And he sent me back like the longest message, but it was like through the eyes of his character, Billy, in the film. And he's like, you owe me some beer. Make sure to put the pickles in the fridge. And like all these inside jokes from like 3 years ago. And that's how invested he was in the film is like we still talk about that. Like over the holidays, he's like, I'd imagine Billy's sitting out there watching the rain come down on the porch, and he showed up to work every day. The first day he was there, it was hot as hell. There's gnats flying in our eyeballs. And we've got to like dig like this like ditch. Well, he's got to dig the ditch. And I was like, hey, Tobin, are you ever used a pickaxe before? And he's like, oh yeah, give it to me. And he's like slugging away on this pickaxe. So he really came on board. Something in the project he believed in. It was definitely different for him. And you saw the movie. It's a completely different role for him. And
Yeah,
he
it really is.
crushes it.
He's fantastic in the
He
movie. I really
crushes
thoroughly
it.
enjoyed him. Yeah.
Yeah, even if you're not like into this type of movie or whatever. And I know like some people are like, oh, it's a faith-based movie. And it's like, I didn't really write it like that, to be honest.
Well, I was going to ask you about that because, like, I don't know if you're a Christian or not. I grew up in a Christian household. Today, I tend to kind of take on the title of agnostic, but I was very deeply invested in that world. And I can still totally respect and really appreciate when it's put into a film. And one thing I loved about the film was that it did have that faith-based element. It did very much have that in a way to kind of inform who these characters are and their kind of their journey, specifically with Nick and what's happening with his wife. But what I really enjoyed about it is it didn't feel like you were pushing that as like a narrative. It felt like a very subtle use in a way, again, to tell the story in a way that made sense for these characters and what was happening. And of course, there's I don't want to get into it, of course, because the movie hasn't come out, but there's a Bible and with Tobin Bell's character and the way that was utilized, I felt like you can remove religion altogether. And I felt like it was utilized in a really strong way to inform who these characters are. I also have to ask you a question in regards to Tobin Bell as well. One last thing about him. At the beginning of the film, we see him, I believe, messing with like a jigsaw puzzle, and his character's name is Billy. So were those two nods to the Saw franchise?
All right, man. I feel like I should lie right here. So Billy was written long before Tobin, before we did casting.
Wow.
So that had nothing to do with it. Although in one of our first script sessions, I was over at Tobin's place. And he disappears for a second. He comes back out and he sets the Saw doll, Billy, down in front of me. And he says, you know what his name is? I was like, no. He's like, Billy. And I was like, interesting. And then, I kid you not, you're not going to believe me, but this is one of those things where, I don't know, fate, whatever. The whole jigsaw puzzle thing. We were just looking at things. Hey, what would Billy be doing alone? Right? He doesn't really have the internet. Doesn't have a smartphone. And we're like, he would do puzzles. So we were at my home. So we're like, well, here's some puzzles. And so we just kind of set it up. I fully didn't comprehend and connect the dots on Jigsaw until about 3 weeks ago. Myself.
That's crazy, man.
And I sent him a message because I was going through, I had to do some things for the film and for the Fathom release. And so I was going through readjusting some frames and I was like, oh man. And I shot him a message and I was like, people aren't going to believe us, but I guarantee you someone's going to notice this. And it's ultimately, it's a happy accident. I wish I would love to lie to you and be like, yeah, it's a nod to his character. But like, I mean, you heard it here first. It was literally, I think it was just the universe.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I like, it blows my mind too. I'm like, oh man, it had to be on purpose. But it wasn't.
Yeah, like so me and a couple of my YouTube peers got to check the movie out early and we all reviewed it. And yeah, we were all talking about it because we're all Saw fans. And with them all kind of being fresh in our minds since the last one just came out, we saw those connections instantly and we were all talking about them. So I knew I had to ask you about that. But hey, man, I see that we're a little past the 20-minute mark and I know your publicist said that you're kind of busy. So I don't want to take too much more of your time. But I just do want to say just one last thing. Again, the movie for everybody is June 17th in Fathom Event in theaters and then late July, I think you said for VOD, correct? Mm-hmm. Gotcha. What is the last thing I want to ask you is what do you want people to take from this film and where can people find you? Kind of anything you want to kind of plug, feel free to do that before we wrap this up.
Absolutely. You know, as far as finding me, man, I'm living that 90s life. I don't have social media. I just have a website. It's imjasonmack.com. And it's just a place for me to post my thoughts and some links to stuff. And when I mess around with some short films and all that stuff. But as far as what I want people to take from the film, when they get done, I just want them to feel like they want to call somebody they love or that's invested in their life and just let them know that they appreciate them while they can. And also to have just, you know, we impact the people around us, whether that's in a positive way or a negative way. We impact the people around us and we have a choice. And hopefully it's more for the positive.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Well, I will say after watching the movie, it's stuck with me. I've talked to my friends about it who all got to see it. I instantly hit up my dad and a couple other friends that I knew would like the movie. And I was like, hey, you got to check out this movie. And, you know, I've been blessed this year to see a few movies early, some from bigger studios, and some of them leave my mind within the week, whereas yours has lingered with me. And I've enjoyed the message of, the redemption, second chances, as well as, you know, kind of just maybe trying to think through your next decisions and how those impact the people around you. So thank you, man, so much for taking the time. I really hope that this film does well for you. One last question. Is there anything next for you that people can look out for? Is there
That's a golden question. You know, there's a book I want to turn into a movie really bad. And I've just finally accepted that in the past like few days because I've been thinking about it, but I can't say what it is. But otherwise, I'm reading scripts. I'm really interested in maybe doing something in horror. I think it's a really interesting genre. If you know, like I look at A Quiet Place, and it's a family drama, but it's a horror, and that's what I'm really interested in. But yeah, we'll see. And when the time comes, man, listen, anytime I'll come back on. It was fun.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, dude, you are welcome here on the channel anytime. I'll definitely be keeping an eye out for your work. And to anybody that is interested in checking out Jason's work, you can find the link already down below in the description box for his website and his YouTube channel. I already had those down there throughout the stream, but I just thought maybe if there was something I couldn't find social media, so I thought maybe he would say it if I couldn't find it.
And then I guess tickets to the film, go to fathomevents.com.
Yeah, Fathom Events, June 17th, guys. All right, we're going to wrap this up. Thank you so much, Jason. And to everybody else, hope you guys enjoyed. Definitely go give Jason some love and go check out A Father's Legacy, June 17th, Fathom Event. Get your tickets. See you guys next time.